Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Elliot, and I direct Urban's Apprenticeship Expansion and Modernization Fund project, which we call AEMF, here at Urban Institute. And we focus on expanding apprenticeships in tech occupations. Next slide. So we're going to start right on time because we have a lot of content to get through and a lot of panelists here. And I think it's going to be a great hour. But just a little bit of housekeeping. The webinar is being recorded. The recording and slides will be shared after the webinar. So if you have a colleague or someone you know who missed this event, please feel free to share it with them. All participants are muted. But we want your questions and we want to have a dialogue. We have time at the end for that. So please type your questions or comments into the QA box at any time. Just be sure to include your name and organization so we know who you are. Next slide. So just a brief overview of the agenda that we have planned. On this webinar, we're going to cover what apprenticeships are and what Urban's project constitutes. We'll have some opening remarks from Cristina Aldrete, and she is of the North San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. We'll have some background on our panelists' activities in tech apprenticeships. We'll have a panel discussion where we all are able to talk about the benefits, challenges, and why even during an economic downturn, tech apprenticeships can make sense for your organization. And then at the end, we'll have an open Q&A where we'd love to hear your questions and thoughts and answer them with all of the panelists. And then we'll have some closing remarks to wrap up what we learned and where we're going. Next slide. So next slide. Before we jump into our content, just a few words about what the Urban Institute is and what we do. So Urban is a nonprofit research organization. We're based in Washington, D.C., and we use research and evidence to elevate policy conversations and decision-making. We have more than 500 experts who immerse themselves in topics and communities and really try to assess the effectiveness of social and economic policies and programs. In the case of the apprenticeship team at Urban, we not only evaluate programs and their effectiveness, but we're now starting to implement programs. It's really exciting for us. And our AEMF project is one of those programs. And I'll describe a little bit about this in a minute. But the evidence we feel is so clear on the benefits to apprenticeship that we want to be a part of making this happen across the US. Next slide. So for those of you who are relatively new to apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship specifically, there are 5 components. The first one is paid employment. Apprentices are typically treated as employees of the organization where they work. There's related technical instruction. So that's training that may happen in a classroom or online to supplement what they're learning at the workplace. There's on-the-job learning with mentoring. This is the training that happens on the job with guidance from an experienced person at the workplace. Fourth, there's rewards for skill gains. Now, what does that mean? It means that there are incremental pay increases, usually tied to milestones in the training. Importantly, apprentices are hired at a lower starting wage rate than people in that occupation. So to keep that going along, to recognize the pathway that they're on and the productivity gains they've made, they receive these increases. And finally, national credentialing is an important component. At the end of a registered program, participants receive a U.S. Department of Labor certificate and often a credential from an educational or training provider. And they can take that credential with them. It's portable and it's a signifier of high quality. Next slide. So in our work at Urban, we found that there are sometimes misconceptions and confusion about what apprenticeship is and what it is not. So I'm going to walk through a few of these misconceptions right now. So first misconception we encounter a lot is that apprenticeships and internships are the same thing. While they're both forms of work-based learning, apprenticeships are long-term and they're paid. Apprentices are typically treated as though they're full employees of the organization. Interns and internships, in contrast, are short-term and often unpaid. Another misconception is that apprenticeships are for the trades only. And the trades do have really high numbers of apprentices in this country. But in the last few years, there's been tremendous growth in different areas and occupations, one of those being IT. And we'll talk about that today. Misconception number 3 is that apprenticeships are only for young people. In fact, apprenticeships can employ people of all ages. And critically, during a period like the one that we're in today, they can be a vehicle for career changers or for people looking to reskill their training. It can be a vehicle for incumbent workers at a workplace to learn a new aspect at that workplace. And misconception number 4, apprenticeships cost too much and are too much effort. In fact, apprenticeships more than pay for themselves. Apprentices begin contributing to productive work very early on in their engagement. For example, I recently interviewed a company that employs youth apprentices, and they recently hired an apprentice into a full-time permanent software engineer role. And I don't know if anyone out there has tried to recruit for software engineer roles, but it's really competitive, it's really expensive, and it's hard to find good people for these roles. It typically costs tens of thousands of dollars to recruit for a software engineer. So this hire of a youth apprentice from their program into the software engineer role was a big net savings for the company. Next slide. So our research in the US and internationally shows that apprenticeships are a boon for employers. They offer access to new and diverse pools of talent, an ability to grow your workforce. It results in reduced turnover, not just among the apprentices, but also, as it turns out, among other employees who serve as mentors and find that very rewarding. It results in high levels of worker productivity and often, as we just discussed, a real cost savings for organizations. Next slide. And finally, a little bit of information about Urban Institute's AEMF project and why you may want to consider starting a tech apprenticeship program now. Urban's AEMF award is a 3-year US Department of Labor funded contract to sign over 1,700 registered apprentices into tech occupations. This award includes money for employers, which is over $5,000 per apprentice to offset training and related costs, and free technical assistance. Our team of experts will help you get your program up off the ground. And our team can provide free technical assistance ranging from answering your questions about registered apprenticeship to developing programs with you that meet your needs, to getting paperwork officially registered with federal or state apprenticeship agencies. So at this point, I'm going to turn the program over to Cristina Aldrete, who's going to make some opening remarks to sort of set us off on this discussion. So Cristina Aldrete is President CEO of the North San Antonio Chamber of Commerce, where she was previously the Executive Vice President for Government Affairs. Before joining the North Chamber staff in 2015, she was the Development Director for the Alamo College's Palo Alto College for 4 years, where she collaborated with local businesses to create seamless college to workforce CTE programs. She serves on multiple boards in the San Antonio community and beyond. And as a business advocacy organization, the North San Antonio Chamber is engaged at the local, state, and federal levels in promoting legislation and initiatives that affect business expansion and workforce growth. Cristina?
Thank you, Diana, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. This is a very, very timely conversation for all of us, I think. Thanks to the Urban Institute team. We have been working with you now for several months, a couple of visits in Washington, D.C., and then meetings here in San Antonio as well. So I'm glad to see this as a culmination of those efforts. Thanks to Brad Voeller, Digital Creative Institute also has been a local partner for apprenticeships for us as well. And so we're very, very glad that they have been around and they've been helping with this effort as well. So right now, because of COVID, all of the shutdowns, all of the challenges as businesses in our community have been going through and have been trying to get beyond, we had always been very, very proud of the internship programs that we have locally through SA Works, through the universities, through Alamo Academies, through the Alamo colleges. There's so many people who are very engaged with internships and apprenticeships through trade associations as well. I think this particular model is just a supplement to all of those things that is very, very timely for us to take advantage of right now, especially because they also have grant money that goes with it. So that's a very important aspect for all of us. So as Diana mentioned, apprenticeships are open to people who are changing fields, who are wanting to upskill, business who need to retrain employees for what our new normal will look like now. So I just sit back, relax, take in some of the information, but also please call us, please call the chamber. Let us know how we can help you implement some of these things. Let us help you also if you need information at the local level for some of the internships, the other apprenticeships programs that are happening. But of course, this one, because it has some significant grant money behind it, is the one that we would really love for y'all to take advantage of, especially now. So with that, thank you very much for joining us. Diana, thanks very much.
Great, thank you, Cristina. So now I'm pleased to introduce our panelists. So first up, we're going to hear from Brad Voeller. He's the founder and CEO of Digital Creative Institute, a degree apprenticeship program for tech occupations. For the past 20 years, Brad's belief in the power of work-based learning has guided his career of building apprenticeship and talent development programs. Previously, he co-founded Lumerit Education, now owned by Pearson, and has also launched several international education programs. Second up, we're going to hear from Dave Snowden, who's Senior Vice President of Corporate Communication at Argo Group. He has more than 20 years of experience working in communication at financial services companies. Dave previously led external communications for Natixis, Global Asset Management, corporate public relations at the Hartford Financial Services Group, and various positions at USAA. He has a bachelor's degree in communications from Incarnate Word College and a master's in organizational communications from St. Mary's University. He serves on the board of directors for SA 2020. And finally, we'll hear from Stephen P. Dodd, who's project executive with IBM, where he forms public-private partnerships between government agencies, institutions of higher education, and NGOs to support IBM's workforce enablement strategies. He was also instrumental in the development of IBM's IT registered apprenticeship program in the US. Before IBM, he was on active duty with the US Marine Corps for 21 years and retired as a lieutenant colonel. He holds a Master's of Science in Information Systems from the Naval Postgraduate School. So first up will be Brad, and then he'll hand things over to Dave to make remarks, and then Dave will hand things over to Stephen.
Thank you for those introductions, Diana, and the great work that Urban Institute is doing to advance this apprenticeship movement, which, like you said, is not just the trades anymore. It's for the world of tech, for digital. And that is everything for us. I started out my education, my journey as an apprentice. So it's something that I'm very passionate about. And I'm grateful for our team based here in San Antonio and in Austin, now expanding into Dallas, where we're focused on these areas of digital marketing, data analytics. And if you can go back to that slide, that was great. And now adding to that, apprenticeships in software development, cybersecurity, in network administration or cloud engineering, and user experience. But our mission is really to bridge this gap in skills that we see between what we're learning in schools and what the employers really require in their workplace. So the next slide. Just a little visual of how we would implement this. When you consider who an apprenticeship can serve, Dana already has gone through the fact that there might be those who are new to the field, or maybe those that are reskilling or incumbent workers. But this is a model on the screen here that just encapsulates how we might partner with a local community college, like our partnerships with Alamo College System or Austin Community College System, where you have a graduate with a 2-year degree. They come out and now they want to enter the workforce. We can bring them through 3 months of additional training pre-apprenticeship to develop their portfolio, obtain some certifications. They're job ready from day one. They interview with the employer. The employer knows that they've gone through a pre-screening process and is able to then determine who's the best candidate to bring in as their apprentice. And for the next year, that apprentice will work with the company full-time in that role, while in the evenings doing training, the related training and instruction, along with the on-the-job application, right? So they're meeting with a cohort of peers and experts in the craft to develop these skills. And there's coaching as well to ensure that they're really aligning what's being learned in the curriculum with the application in the job day to day. So at the end of this 12-month journey as an apprentice, they receive that Department of Labor certificate of completion, along with other industry certifications. And because of our university partnership, they're able to obtain 24 college credits on top of the associate's degree to help them in that journey towards a bachelor degree. So we're really excited about how this plays out for a community college student. It can apply to those that already have their 4-year degree. We have some participants, some apprentices who have a master's degree, and now they're moving into a new field. So very diverse its applications, but I hope this visual can help make that a little bit more concrete. Next slide, if you would. So we've partnered to date with over 60 employers here in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas. And also, when we do these partnerships, the key is to figure out how do we break down the skills that the employer needs and customize the training so it's really unique to applications within their workplace. We have a performance coaching system that supports that so that every manager, every apprentice has that support on a weekly basis. And then we mentioned the college credits that tie into this, and for those that need it, the opportunity to make progression towards their college degree. So I'm very excited about the conversation that we're having here today. We've seen a lot of employers already adopt this, but we're just at the very beginning of the potential here. And I think we're going to see in the future that what's transpired in the United Kingdom, in Germany, Switzerland, that kind of broad application and engagement, we're going to see that happen in this country as well. So thank you. And I'll pass it on to you, Dave.
Great. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here with you guys today and celebrate and support the Digital Creative Institute. As Brad mentioned, I'm Dave Snowden. I lead communications for Argo Group. Our company is a specialty lines insurer, and we primarily focus on insuring high-risk businesses. And when I think about early career professionals, I think you would all agree that successfully finding your way into the work world can be a high-risk business. But unfortunately, there's not an insurance policy you can take out in case things don't go as planned. Your best insurance is, in fact, a solid education. But, you know, sadly, many of our colleges and universities aren't graduating communication professionals that are ready for the workforce. Now, let me be clear. So there are definitely some good schools out there, but I think it's safe to say that higher education just may be one of the last institutions that needs to be disrupted by contemporary business models and technology. And in fact, many of them are really hindered by irrational financial models. So thankfully, we're starting to see some really great programs to help. DCI's apprenticeship model is certainly one of the important solutions for students and businesses alike, and it works. You know, when I think back on the professors who really prepared me for a professional career, it was more often the professors who had practical, real-world experience. You know, I think back to James Buchanan at Taft High School, who was a working actor and a script writer. I think back to Trish Simonite, an accomplished photographer who taught me during my time at Palo Alto Community College. And then I think of people like Robert Sosa, Valerie Greenberg, Peggy Bowie, all very accomplished professionals who mentored me during my time at Incarnate Word College, and honestly, for many years after. This model works. I was fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, but you know what? DCI takes out the luck and provides an impressive value proposition. For the student, you get highly qualified professionals teaching the coursework and serving as professional coaches. Plus, the student gets paid to work and learning from and to learn from the best. Now, I would say that's an innovative financial model. And you think about it from the business perspective. As a business, we have access to very bright, local, talented, early career professionals who are surrounded by a best-in-class group of professional instructors and coaches, assisting them with a curriculum that's really tailor-made for our business needs. All of this for a very competitive rate. So ultimately, everyone wins in this model. Again, I really admire what Brad's done. I really admire the DCI model and the work that they're doing. I appreciate the opportunity to work with them. And in fact, I'm literally looking forward to the conversation part of our discussion today. So those are my opening remarks, and look forward to the Q&A. Stephen?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Brad. So as Dr. Elliot introduced, I'm Stephen Dodd with IBM. And next slide, please. And I've been working on apprenticeships for the last couple of years and forming public-private partnerships, as Dr. Elliot mentioned, with schools, institutes of higher education, employers, as well as non-government organizations. So I'm going to echo everything that Brad and Dave just said and Dr. Elliot told us. The precepts that they just talked about are really foundational reasons why companies, and especially IBM, looked at apprenticeship programs as a way to address that gap between IT skills and the number of graduates who are coming out of colleges across the US in computer science, software engineering, or information systems. The gap is just way too large. In any given year, we have about 500,000 IT positions available. And yet the school's only graduating maybe 50, 60,000 graduates. So they're never going to fit in. And on top of that, not every position in IBM requires a 4-year degree from University of Texas, Stanford, or Rice University in software engineering or computer science. So the question is, how do you find that talent? So what we decided to do was take a look and open that pipeline aperture of talent and see where else can we find talent to meet and address these skill gaps. And apprenticeships was one avenue we looked at. And apprenticeships fall underneath a general umbrella of new collar jobs inside IBM, where we decided in our senior VP of HR, Diana Gerson, looked at IBM, looked at our job roles and said, all these job roles that we have, what is the education requirements in there? Do they all really need a software degree? Do they all really need a bachelor's degree? What do we really need? If you start peeling back that all those job requirements, what you'll see is you'll list with a list of skills that you want somebody to have in that position. Well, that's foundational, right? And so what we decided to do is go take a look at how do we find the program that can address those skills through work-based learning. And apprenticeships are the gold standard of work-based learning. And so the last couple of years, working with the U.S. Department of Labor and state agencies and with inside IBM, we developed a registered apprenticeship program that we have with at the national office with U.S. Department of Labor, Office of Apprenticeships. We started back in 2017 with a cohort of 7 software engineers. Today, we're at over 500 registered apprenticeships across the U.S. in states in Texas, North Carolina, West Virginia, New York, California, Arizona. A few other states are growing as well. And we've got 25 registered apprenticeship roles, such as cybersecurity, software engineering, data scientist, data analyst, hardware hacker, application developer. And so what we've done is develop these roles and got them registered with USDOL so that the businesses can hire individuals through work-based learning and through very structured learning program, the way technical instruction, deliver that skills and that education that that business unit needs for that worker to have, that apprentice to have. Our programs are competency-based, and they're mostly from 12 months for a software engineer, but they 18 months for a mainframe system administrator, and they go up to 24 months for a data scientist. And what we found is that the other thing we're looking at is, because we don't want to recruit individuals with 4-year degrees. If you've got a 4-year degree in software engineering or computer science, we won't hire you as an apprentice. We want those individuals coming out of high school. Ideally, that the ideal candidate, I would say, is someone coming out of community college or someone coming out of the military. We're currently working with the U.S. Department of Labor, who has a pilot program with the Veterans Administration, where they're putting counselors, apprenticeship counselors, on 8 U.S. military bases across the U.S. And I was on a call with them yesterday, where our recruiters at IBM will actually be working with these counselors on these 8 bases, where transitioning service members will be given the opportunity or given the information about IBM apprenticeships, so we can recruit directly from these transitioning service members into an IBM apprenticeship program. It's a pilot program, just started, but I view that as a great way to find talent. Apprenticeships also offer a very, very good way to change the workforce and diverse workers. That goes without saying. And our apprenticeships range in age. Dr. Elliot mentioned this, but our apprentices we hired one who was 19. We have some who are 59. So it's a whole range of ages, minorities, backgrounds, whatever the case may be, and they fit very well through a work-based learning program. The other key aspect I would mention as well is that mentorship is key to a successful apprentice. In our program, and I'm sure Brad and Dave have the same program, is mentors are there to work with and oversee the apprentice so that they can in fact be successful in their program. It's a key element, and anyone's thinking about this, I would make sure that when you think about your program, think about mentorship and how you're going to integrate that on your program, because that's one of the keys, I would say, to success. Lastly, and just something I want to kind of offer up to everybody here, is that underneath another U.S. Department of Labor grant that I'm a partner in, IBM developed a pre-apprenticeship program. As Brad was saying, our pre-apprenticeship program the cost is covered by this grant that we have, and we developed it, we offered it in software engineering, mainframe system administration, data scientist, and cybersecurity. And that program, funded through this other grant I have, is available to any employer or any partner who'd like to take a look at finding talent, put them through a pre-apprenticeship program before you hire them, to give them some foundational skills, technical skills, soft skills, or we like to call them success skills. And so that on some of this population, give them an opportunity so they have some foundational skills. So if they step into an IT apprenticeship program, the chance of the likelihood of them being more successful is greater than they didn't have any education beforehand. Anyway, that's a lot I've just said. I'm looking forward to questions and answers as we go forward. Back to you, Dr. Elliot.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you all. So I have a few questions that I'm going to ask our panelists to kind of kick us off, but I see there's been a lot of activity in the Q&A, which is terrific, and there's some great questions coming in. So I'll try to ask these kickoff questions really briefly, and then we'll transition right to your questions. So the first question for everyone is, we talked a little bit about we've been basically making a pitch for registered apprenticeship throughout all of our presentations, right? But in your opinion, what's the best reason why people should start a program if they haven't already? Anyone want to kick us off? Brad, you want to go for it?
I would say it's the customization of the training to your specific needs. As Stephen was saying, we need to move beyond a language of certificates or degrees and embrace a language of skills. When you break that job down to the specific skills and identify, how can I provide training that's customized to deliver these skills I need? It's magical what happens in the business. But what college, university program is going to actually sit down with your company and not only just, generally for the industry, but a specific role, identify how to support that role through some kind of program. I haven't seen that before, but that's what an apprenticeship does. It allows you to be very precise in delivering what you need. And of course, that opens the door up to consider a much more diverse set of candidates and backgrounds for these roles.
And Dave, Stephen, you've each hired apprentices. What are the benefits that you've seen?
So I would offer up three things. The first one is an opportunity to bring someone in who can grow with a function. I'll tell you a little bit about that. An opportunity to really customize, as Brad said, and I give an example of that. And then an opportunity to really find a more cost-effective way to do something. So our first apprentice we brought in, and we needed a customized program around Devon to help us with a really kind of specific niche area of email marketing. That's a whole discipline. And to find someone who's really good at that is difficult. And so Brad helped us to design a curriculum for Devon and kind of bring him along. We have another example where we had a person come in and she had a master's degree. She was working at MTV. She had great experience, but she was looking to get into kind of more of a corporate communications and marketing role. We had a need to find a more effective way to get certain video projects done. And we partnered with Brad to bring in Coco, and she's done a fabulous job. And then more recently, we have a Salesforce program that we're kind of ramping up. And so to find someone that's already done this for 5 years, it might be too basic for them. And so Brad's helped us find Annette, and she's going to be terrific, and she's going to grow with the program. And so to me, those are three examples of real opportunities to take advantage of this program.
Yeah, and Dr. I would agree 100% what Brad and Dave said, is that for us, right, is that this is an opportunity to build our talent that we want and what the managers want. And through that structured learning, through the RTI, related technical instruction, and through work-based learning competencies that we've laid down, through, we have races that we want you to know these skills, these competencies. If you have a mentor, we're building that talent pipeline of individuals that we want. And you know what turns out is that the loyalty is terrific as well, because over 90% of our apprentices who have completed our program have become full-time IBMers. And a quick quote here is some of our managers on the first cohort of software engineers. After a year of the program, they came in, they were not college graduates, they're not software engineers. After they completed the programs, the manager decided that they should receive the same type of offer as a early professional hire in software engineering, because their skills and their talent and their competencies match those, if not exceeded, those coming out of college with a 4-year degree. And to me, that's a great testament. We've also had 2 of our apprentices, through their ideas, we followed patents on them. So there's amazing talent pool out there. It's there. We just have to find, provide these opportunities. We've got to stop looking and thinking everyone needs a 4-year degrees in these positions, which is why I go back to, if you're in HR and company, look at those jobs. You really need that 4-year degree, because if in that job description says 4-year degree, well, guess what? That recruiter is only going to look for someone who's got a 4-year degree, and they won't look at anyone else. And I think that's an issue, and we have to keep that in mind.
This is a great. Okay, go ahead, Brad.
Stephen, I would just add to that observation that right now in this moment, there's a lot of unrest out there, and we're having to reevaluate as employers our hiring practices. And for a long time, we've been content to point the finger at K-12 and say, well, they're not delivering what we need, or to the university and saying they're not producing the kind of diverse graduates that we need. But really, it's time for employers to say, what do we actually need in these roles? And how can we be more open to diverse candidates coming in? There's an opportunity for employers to actually play a very strong role in ensuring that they have a equitable approach to how they're building the workforce. If you look,
Brad,
though,
that's an investment. That's an investment,
in
your workforce, right? And employers need to do that.
Mm-hmm. They need to, because if we look at the traditional approach and its result, we'll see something like, the software engineering programs, the graduates. Only 7% are Latino in the software engineering, only 6% are Black. In a conversation with a large San Antonio employer considering apprenticeship a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about applying it to their data analyst roles, and he said, well, we only hire from select colleges and hire engineers for this. Well, the fact is your workforce then is going to look like Google, where you have only 4% your workforce is Black, and less than half of that is representation in your technical jobs. So really we have to take these steps, or else we're not going to see that change that we see a huge demand for today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, right. If we don't do that, right, we'll be here 10 years talking about the same issue, about a skills gap.
Yeah.
Brad is kind of like a match.com, right? So you've got these diverse candidates that don't know how to find us, and you've got companies that don't know how to tap into these great resources. And, you know, by the nature of what Brad described, you know, going to these top tier universities, well, you're not going to find the candidates you're looking for there. So it's really an important added benefit.
And I think on top of that too, you need to consider that because we are dealing with a diverse workforce here that we're looking to recruit, is that they may not have those opportunities to have that education to be successful. So you have to think about, you know, how can I work and through maybe pre-apprenticeship or something, give them some skill sets and some knowledge so they can be successful for an opportunity as apprentice, because otherwise, I mean, we're still talking technical jobs here, right? So we still have to make sure that the apprentice is successful. So whatever you can do to front end that, and obviously military is veterans a good pipeline, or through community colleges, or just individuals out there who want to get into this. You know, they've gone through COVID-19. Look where we are today with the number of individuals who've gone through service jobs, 2 or 3 jobs in one household. You know, how do they change? How do they go after these opportunities? Because there are not enough software engineers from Stanford to fill these jobs. We have to do something. And I think apprenticeships are the way to go, work-based learning.
So, you know, we probably have a lot of folks on the line who are hearing this saying, I completely agree, absolutely. But I have to get permission through the ranks at my organization, or I have to change, doing this means I have to change HR's practices. Or how do I connect with these pools when I'm so strapped for time, I don't have. So there's a lot of challenges with getting this done. What would you say to people who are hearing all of this saying, this sounds fabulous, but I just don't know where to begin? There's so many challenges here.
I would say that executive buy-in is key. Without that, a transformational tool like apprenticeship, it's just not going to be adopted, or at least adopted at scale. So finding that executive buy-in and leadership. But it's easier now, I believe, because we've gone through one of the most massive social experiments in all of history. And the leaders, the heroes of the story, it's HR. They are the ones that are bringing organizations into the future of work. And so I think there's, in this moment, a special acknowledgement that they need to be looking differently now at this new normal and how to prepare their workforce for it, whether it's apprenticeship for those incumbent workers that need these skills to be effective now in this new reality, or it's a new pathway for a pipeline of skilled talent. So I think in this moment we're going to find that there's more openness to innovative approaches.
Dave, Stephen, thoughts on how to address some of these challenges?
And so it definitely helped our case, Dr. Elliot, where we had our chairwoman CEO who's, you know, wanted to, with the new college jobs and took that initiative. So Brad, you're right, you need that. But I would say today, though, is that given everything that we're all reading in the media and what these company executives are saying, is that they need to translate that verbiage into action, right? They really need to do it. And that means to me that if they really have to work with their HR and say, we need to take a different approach, right? So we're not closing off any other pipeline. We're just opening up that pipeline aperture and take a look at other talent pipelines that we haven't addressed before, and how do we bring those in? The opportunity is there, and Dr., as you and I all know, right, is that there's lots of funding opportunities to offset some of the costs. There's lots of artifacts that IBM has, that Urban Institute, we can make that transition and provide all the resources that they need to make this an easier transition. But, it helps if you've got the executive at the top saying, we're going to do this.
Yeah, no doubt. So at Argo, we have two cultural attributes that have helped a lot, right? So entrepreneurial spirit is real, and investing where the biggest opportunity is a real part of our culture. And so I have to say, I work with probably the most contemporary HR department I've ever worked with in my career. And so when I approached them with this idea, it was like, yeah, let's give it a try. So that's helpful, right, from a cultural attribute. But at the same time, the other side of that is we don't invest in anything that doesn't have a strong business case. And I have to tell you, working with Brad, making the business case was pretty darn easy. I'm a communications guy, not a finance guy, but the math, you can do it on half a piece of paper. It pays for itself. And I think those two things make it pretty easy.
That's great. So last question before we go to our Q&A. People are hesitant and nervous about hiring people in the COVID-19 era, right? We don't know what's going on with the economy, right? We've heard rumblings of, we know that lots of people have lost their jobs. We've heard rumblings about, how long is this going to go? This could go on for a while, the economic slowdown. So what thoughts do each of you have on that?
I would say that now is the time to double down on investing in your workforce. And there's a lot of studies that are being done on this, looking at 2008, prior crises, how we emerged from those, and employers who use that downturn as a time to reinvest in skilling their workforce. Well, they emerged strong when it was very competitive and the market heated up again, right? So it's going to come back. Are you going to wait until you're in a significant challenge position, or really be intentional and strategic right now? And the reality is, with an apprenticeship, it's not like you just implement it and tomorrow you see all the results. The more you can take this prolonged look at your needs over time, the more you stand to win from this. I mean, the best ROI is realized in year 2 and year 3, as you're seeing this talent that's gone through the apprenticeship. Now they're moving into more advanced roles and providing greater leadership within your organization, and the retention and the skill that they bring. So really now is the time to begin with that. And there's ways to move around headcount restrictions, budget restrictions, lack of discretionary, funds for, training or development. There's ways. The Urban Institute, through the Department of Labor and accessing those funding, it's incredible. There also is WIOA funding. I should let Stephen really speak to that. He's the guru when it comes to analyzing all the different sources of funding, and I think there's few people in this country that understand that as well as you, Stephen. But it doesn't have to be. That doesn't have to be a constraint.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I would echo that as well. But I think now's the time to do that investment, right? For companies to build that pipeline going through this, because if we're not strategic and think about our workforce, a year from now, because it'll take a year from a software engineer apprentice to get someone fully qualified. But if you don't do the investment now up front and you don't think about strategically, what is that workforce I need tomorrow, especially in IT, right? The shelf life of IT skills is not that long. So you've got to constantly invest in training and education, and work-based learning is a great way to do it. And to me, that's the investment in your workforce in the future is what I would say. How can you not afford to do it, right? You want to be successful next week.
Sure.
I would just add, we've been very fortunate at Argo, we're hiring. So we need to add jobs. The business continues. I will say that, we just did a series of Zoom interviews, and we're going to onboard our first DCI candidate virtually. I've never met her in person, and it may be a while before we see each other in an office, but I'm not worried about it. It wasn't an obstacle. So, yeah.
Terrific. All right, let's switch to the questions that we've been getting, because there's some great ones here. First one, we talked a little bit about this, but let's talk about it sort of in earnest. Question from Michael Ward at Austin Urban Technology Movement is, what are you doing to focus your efforts on helping underserved, underrepresented communities and combat systematic, maybe systemic racism? And I think we talked about how this opens hiring possibilities to communities who've traditionally been left out because of systemic racism, because of opportunities have been limited in various capacities to certain groups. Do you all want to add to this? Is there something else that you'd like to sort of tack on to how you see this as benefiting things right now?
Hey, Dr. So I'll take one thing we've done, try to do is, as Brad mentioned, WIO, right, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. In some of our locations, what I try to do when I know we're hiring a large cohort is I'll work with the local workforce board, and we'll actually do hiring fairs at the local workforce board, the one-stops, so we can find that talent right there. And we've found some great talent coming through that. So don't disregard that effort right there, because that's where this population is who are looking for jobs, and we found some great talent. So I think it's everywhere, but you have to be out there. You have to be proactive.
Yeah. And we found community college relationships are excellent too, because that really is a representation of the community. So a great pool of talent. And there's so many other local community organizations that you can partner with that provide that opportunity to connect with diverse pools of talent. I think it really is with the employers, recognizing that we can't just hide behind an excuse that says, well, I'm not getting those diverse candidates that have the degrees and the qualifications. We really have to break down what's required for that job and use that as the criteria, not some artificial degree requirement.
And as I said before, this program serves as a great pipeline. Within Argo, we've set up a number of employee resource groups that are telling us, the leadership, they're telling us ultimately, what we need to do to improve. And I'm pretty sure that several of our DCI students are going to find their way into those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Another question, this is sent in by someone anonymously, is what are options for employers who don't have the time or resources to build a work-based learning or training program and to identify mentors? So Stephen, you've been really helpful in kind of providing resources to the community of tech employers. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, thanks. Through public partnerships and working through community colleges and other employees, is that we're willing to give up all the, not give up, but we're willing to share, right, all our artifacts and our standards for software engineering and all our occupational roles. But at the same time, companies who don't want to take that overhead, one thing that we've done is that it's kind of like what Brad talked about, is that we'll pull together some of our employers and our clients. And if we have a selection of clients who all want, say, software engineers, is that we'll pull together a cohort of individuals to go through a program administered through a community college or through another sponsor, where as they go through the program, they're actually then go out and work and get hired by these 10 different companies, but they go together through as a cohort, working with a community college, multiple employers, and do that. Now, and for small, medium-sized businesses, there's no reason why you can't take a community college, say Alamo Community College, who's part of the San Jacinto Scaling Apprenticeship Grant, work with several companies who all want software engineers who don't have the overhead or the expense or the time to do a program, have someone be the sponsor, and then bring that cohort together. And then each of those apprentices step into that small, medium-sized business as an apprentice, and you have the mentoring to do that. To me, that's a great way to do it. And let's not forget also that you also have a Vera network as well. This new program I mentioned where there's going to be apprenticeship counselors on these bases. That's a recruitment right there. But and Doctor, you haven't mentioned it yet, but you have great resources and tools that are available that people can pull down and just adapt and modify and do it. And there's also intermediaries as well who can do a lot of these things for you as well.
Yep.
Many different programs.
Yeah, I'll make a quick plug for Urban also has another project that produces competency-based occupational frameworks for registered apprenticeship. They're free for everyone to use. They're non-proprietary. And because we're researchers and we over-research everything, they're very, very well prepared. They're very, very well vetted by industry experts. So I'm happy to follow up after the fact with that link.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I would say they're a gold standard of standards, really are.
Thank you. Thank you. We are just running down the clock. I want to direct a question to Cristina. The question came in, this was anonymous. How are other chambers in the US getting involved in promoting and having employers adopt tech apprenticeships?
I think kind of the same way we are, by having webinars like this, making connections, collaborating with the universities, with the colleges, anybody who in their own communities are offering these apprenticeship programs. It is a collaborative effort. You know, from the chamber standpoint, we are just ensuring that all of our members, all of the businesses in the San Antonio area and in the region have this information. They are aware. You know, your chambers are the best cheerleaders for business. And so we try to promote, we throw, you know, put it out through social media, you know, our newsletters. Anytime we have an opportunity, it is part of any chamber's mission is to help grow business and to make sure that we are advocating for business and economic development. So all of that, apprenticeships, internships, all of that are a part of that. It makes your community much more attractive when you have a company wanting to come into the city or is looking at relocating. And you can say, we have apprenticeship programs, we have internship programs, we have the best universities, we have the best community colleges. Just let us know what you need. And so that's, you know, every community is every chamber should be doing that. I know we are, but that's usually the way it gets done.
Great. Well, I have one last question, I think, for panelists, which is, and this is a really good question. What are sort of, you know, this person who sent this question in, I work at a four-year university. Can you explain what the specific skills are that graduates of four-year institutions are lacking? And can you further explain a four-year university's role in an apprenticeship program?
That is a difficult one. University programs, there's so much variance between them, even within a specific school. And again, this is not necessarily the only solution. It's coming alongside the other pipelines that are there. But we have seen that in a number of university programs, four-year graduates are lacking skills that the employers are requiring. Typically, it comes down to a lack of modernization. It doesn't reflect the curriculum that they've gone through, doesn't reflect the tools, technologies that that employer is using. And so because of that, you look at the job descriptions out there and they say, we want a college degree plus we want 3 to 5 years of experience. The college degree is not enough by itself. And so how do you do this, you know, get that experience to even qualify? That's why what Stephen is pointing out with the pre-apprenticeship is so critical to identify even before employment. Okay, what are these specific skill sets that employer has defined? Let's bring these candidates through this specific training. You know, in IBM's case, it's more, you know, non-traditional talent, doesn't have the degrees, but we see employers bringing them the degree holders through these pre-apprenticeships as well, if they're changing careers, if they're, and so they go through that, and now they have what's needed to be effective from day one in that job. And we've seen one of our employer partners reduce their training and onboarding time 5 weeks. They've been able to cut out from that. That's a savings of over $8,000 per candidate that comes in because they now have exactly the skills needed to hit the ground running day one with that company. So it's hard to speak in generalities, but typically it comes down to specific requirements that the company has.
And I would add, so what a four-year university, to answer the initial question, right, is that a hiring manager will say, well, I'm looking for the experience, as Brad mentioned, you just have a degree, but, you know, so they don't have the work-based learning But one thing I like about apprenticeship programs, especially right, is that you can tailor the program to meet the needs of the employer. You know, what's going on for other companies doesn't necessarily work for IBM, or what works for IBM doesn't work out. But for a university, I mean, there's many different programs. You could take a co-op program that you may have in engineering or something else. You could work with employers hiring engineers. And during that last year of college, why they're still, you know, going through the last year, one semester, instead of being a co-op semester, could be the first part of an apprenticeship program where they're working and getting that work-based learning, right? So when they graduate, they have the degree, they've got the work-based learning, they are a valuable resource. So what my short answer would be, I know we're in time, is that what works for the employer? If they need an engineer or they need a 4-year degree, what program works where they can get some work-based learning whilst they're still in college finishing their degree? And that's the same with community colleges as it would be for university.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe that's the model for the future of work and education. That's it.
I'd add a couple of things. I read an interesting article the other day, and it talked about kids used to go to college to get a degree to get a job. Now you go to get a job to get a degree. The model is switching. When you look at higher education and you realize that the increasing cost of higher education is only second to healthcare in this country, and I several 100%. I forget what the number is over 20 years. And the college debt is in the trillions. It's north of 1.5, 1.7 trillion dollars. That's more than auto debt combined. That's more than credit card debt combined. The value proposition just isn't there. But I'll tell you that if you look, there's an interesting book called The Innovative University. If you look at BYU, Idaho, what they're doing out there, if you look at what Starbucks is doing with Arizona State University, there's some, in fact, I have 14-year-old twins, and I am so excited about them going to college because the opportunities to enter a whole new world of college is there. But I really think the value proposition needs to start with, what are the skills necessary to do a job? Oh, and let's get a degree. So there's a challenge, but it's exciting.
Great. That was such a terrific discussion. Thank you all so much. I'm going to now turn it back over to Cristina to close us out with some closing remarks.
This really was a very, very interesting and very engaging discussion. Lots more to do. It's changing, and I think we need to change with it. The way we look at apprenticeships, the way we look at how to train our workforce. You know, one of the things that I've always said, because I've worked for colleges and universities before, is the way even colleges and universities look at their student. One of the questions I always throw out to them is, you know, who is your customer? Coming from a business organization, who is your customer? The answer is inevitably the student. They're paying the tuition, right? So they're my customer. Absolutely not. Your customer are the businesses who hire the product that you are producing. So it's that change in how to think about workforce. And I think it's going to include businesses looking at a more collaborative effort with the universities and the colleges and apprenticeship programs and, you know, people like that. And the universities pivoting and changing their curriculum. And it's the changes in curriculum have to happen very, very quickly to be able to meet the needs and the demands of the business community and the corporations and the people who are providing the jobs. So very interesting, very engaging conversation. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Brad, as always. And Diana, you're a wonderful moderator. Thank you so much. The North Chamber is here to help. We can connect you with any one of these people. So please just let us know how we can help you all, how we can make those connections for you.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Cristina. And I'll say that apologies to everyone who submitted terrific questions. We just did not have enough time to get through them. So we'll think about how to continue the discussion afterwards. We'll think about how to direct questions to different people. And I will follow up also with a link to the recording of the webinar, a link to, you know, a few of the resources we discussed on the line today. So you can follow up, and really we're all open and available to talk more about this. As you can see, we are all true believers. We believe that this is apprenticeship is a great thing. It's a great solution for everyone. So let us know how we can be helpful as we move forward. And, you know, encourage everyone else to take on apprentices, and especially in tech. This is really a great solution for employers, for apprentices, and really for the economy. So on that, I'm going to close things out. Thank you all so much for your time. This has been terrific. I wish we had another half an hour to keep asking questions and keep talking. But until next time, and we hope that there will be a next time, we'll see you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thanks.